Chosen Men, Military Skirmish Games in the Napoleonic Wars by Mark Latham. Part of the Osprey Wargames Blue Book series, and we've been having a lot of fun learning as we go, making a few mistakes in our videos and cleaning them up the next time. We're going to clean up some mistakes here. I went to Mark Latham's website. I'll try to remember to throw a link in the description. He has some errata, which is nice. He also has the army list for the Russian forces. Remember that this book is really geared more towards the Peninsular War and the Battle of Waterloo. The kind of earlier stuff and the kind of called the East Front of the Napoleonic Wars don't really factor in. But if you have a hankering for some Russian warfare, go ahead and check out Mark Latham's website. He also clears up one confusion I had. In the rules section, it lists a hold order costs 2 tack. And here in the actions, it says 1. It's actually supposed to be 2. So, errata is your friend. Bigger thing is, in the last video, we talked about the line formation and how when targeted by artillery units in line gain +1 resilience. I forgot to do that. I was kind of questioning, why would you ever go into line? On his website, Mark says, yeah, you probably wouldn't. This game is designed for skirmish-level battles. It's designed for this stuff, not big battalions of hundreds of guys jammed into, tiny confined spaces. But he includes the rule there for line. They go a little slower, they can, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go over all that. Get the rules. They're a lot of fun. +1 resilience is one of the things that you get for being in line. Oh, that's really interesting. Let's go take a look at the artillery section where he says resilience is useless against several pounds of heavy lead. You don't have resilience. So you get a +1 to a roll that doesn't factor in. Recall that, okay, well that's fine, except that this actually is part of the errata. When targeted by artillery, units in line gain -1 wound. So if you're firing grape at the guys in line, normally what would happen is everybody within 8 inches, you roll a d6. On a 1, it's a misfire. On a 2 through 5, you do 2 through 5 wounds. On a 6, you do 6 wounds plus the roll of another die. And as long as you keep rolling 6s, you keep racking up wounds. So that can come in handy when you're charging into the barrels of loaded guns, which is gonna happen today. Let's take a look at the scenario I got planned for you. On the side of the French, we're going to see 2 cannons. This lieutenant colonel has been charged with securing a narrow pass that leads to a separate section of the battle. He has specifically been handed this small unit of infantrymen to help assist these 2 cannons. Now, both of these cannons are classed as small cannons. He is a lieutenant colonel. He is the day's fox, which means he can nominate 1 enemy unit. And when they fire, they have to re-roll all of their 6s. And then this, what do we got? Small cannon. That's pretty much about it. Those are the big things you need to be aware of. Although, I'll say this. Remember that in Chosen Men, there are Cauldron of War strategies, and the French get to choose theirs. He is going to stick with the cannon theme, and he's going to pick Grape Shot. He can play this in any action when an enemy unit is within 12 inches of a board edge in your own deployment zone, which is going to be the back edge. You'll see that. Anybody within 12 inches, they can immediately resolve a canister shot from a small cannon against the target unit. So it's going to get tougher. There's essentially additional cannons off-board that can affect the on-board action. But before we get into that, let's take a look at the British boys. The French are bringing a total of about 250 points to the party. The British here have a fairly difficult job. They need to secure those guns. They are bringing 330 points. So they have an 80-point advantage, but they also have to take the initiative. They have to take the fight to the French. So that's a little bit of a balancing act. We've got a major here, and he is mounted. He's a stirring orator. 1 unit within 6 inches gets a +1 to their command. He is also a melee specialist. When he attacks in melee, he gets to make 2 melee attacks. And as we said at the end of the last battle, this time around, we're going to go ahead and, in keeping with the rules, our cavalry all have 2 wounds, which should help them last a little bit longer. I think wait, is that right? And then this is the leader for these dragoons. These are classed as dragoons. He's actually got, I want to say 3 wounds. Yeah, he does. Pretty good at melee. They have a melee skill of 4. I think everybody else has a melee skill of 3. I will point out the cannoneers do have muskets, so if something goes wrong, if they flee, they do have the option at some point of turning around and forming a smallish skirmish unit. And then on the other side of the Redcoats, in addition to the Horsey Boys, they are bringing a rather large unit, 9 riflemen. Those are light infantry. there's a 50% chance they ignore terrain for movement purposes, and then they also ignore, they're sharpshooters, so they ignore range penalties for the rifles that they're shooting. We are all set to go. Let's take a look at the terrain. This is a fairly wide open battlefield, which really isn't fair, and that's probably why the French chose it. Who has any interest in fighting a fair fight when you're at war? One thing to point out, these red jewels over here mark the limit of the off-table batteries that are going to be able to fire canister shot from the back, we'll call it the north board edge. Here's the lieutenant colonel for the French up there. He's in the center for right now. Notice that the French have set their 2 cannons up on these 2 hillocks. Terrain effects. These are light woods. They block line of sight from everywhere on the table. You can fire into them. Troops that are in the woods have a 6-up cover save. The swamp is impassable, and the hills are steep-sided, flat-topped affairs, including these little low cliffs that you see here. It costs 3 inches to get from the bottom to the top. On the back side of these hills, there's no movement penalty. Chosen Men usually uses when you hit a linear obstacle, you forego half of the rest of your movement. Well, by the time you get to the top of this, you're done moving because you're already in melee. So what we're going to do to make sure that this helps defend, and that's why the cannons are on there, is just declare it's a 3-inch move to get from the bottom to the top. If you charge and you have only got 2 inches of movement left when you're down here, the charge is going to fail. As we mentioned, the French have chosen their Cauldron of War. They do not have the initiative. So the next thing we have to look at is, what are the British Cauldron of War strategy going to be? And with a 3, their strategy will be a cavalry threat, may be played at the start of any action phase when the enemy infantry unit is within 12 inches of a board edge. That's these guys over here. In fact, we're going to do that right now. You may immediately make... When it is activated, the unit must pass a morale check or become broken. No, we're not going to use it right now. So at any time, we can say, hey, pass a morale check or be broken. Let's wait until the second turn to do that. Because for right now, we got to do our activations, and the first thing we're going to do is this guy down here is going to move at the double. Moving at the double costs 2 tack, and digging in costs 2. They get to move their 6 plus another 5 inches. They may not need to dig in, to be honest with you. Moving 11 inches was going to put them up to 11 inches. Our leader's going to stop right there. And these guys are just going to hunker down behind these woods. That gets them just a little bit closer. Now the French get to go. And the difficulty that the French have is that their infantry are a little bit too far away for comfort for these guys. The infantry leader is this guy right here who's pointing off table. Hey, watch out for those cavalry over there. And they are too far away to shoot, so I mean, they're a good 24 inches away. Now that he's seen the lay of the land, this lieutenant colonel is going to move at the double and join this unit over here. They're really going to need his command bonus. And with an 11-inch movement, he's going to be just a little bit shy. We'll bring him 6 inches to here, and then he's got 5 more inches. He's 2 units, he's 3 inches away. He doesn't quite have enough to make it to the top of the hill. We'll tuck him back here where he's nice and safe. Just measure that one more time. From there, and then 5. That's about as close as he can make it. Could have used 1 more inch on that roll. Unfortunately, it just wasn't meant to be. But he is within 6 inches of these guys, so now they're going to use his command radius. And then the British cavalry are going to be down here. And to keep him kind of flexible, we're going to move our major up to these woods. A lot of ants. And then we're going to move these guys down to behind this hill. Remember, you cannot charge anyone if you cannot see them first. One thing I'll point out, if I was playing this against an actual opponent, we would step through and deliberately, oh, this cannon holds. Now this guy moves. Now they hold. Now these guys move. They are holding and ready to fire action, which is why these guys stop. We all know that this first turn is going to be a little bit of jockeying for position. I'm not overly concerned about it. Moving on to turn number 2, the British now have to decide if they want the cavalry to threaten these guys up here on the hill or not. Do we want them to make the morale check now to buy these guys a turn to get within line of sight? Do we bring our boys out from behind the woods? Now, it is the French turn, but you have to do the Cauldron of War before the action phase starts. While the French have the initiative before that action phase, they are going to go ahead and declare that these infantry up on the hill are threatened by cavalry. The infantry here can use the lieutenant colonel's command of 4, so they need a 3 up in order to pass that morale check. They have failed, so now they're broken. Let's go ahead and put a red broken marker down. That's going to be a problem for them because they can no longer take any actions this turn. It is still the French initiative, so the French are going to nominate this unit to go first. And now the British have to decide, are they going to activate him, them, or the infantry? They've held. So let's start with these guys. They are going to move at the double over the hill, trying to scare these guys off. They automatically move 10 inches. Moving at the double means they get to add an additional d6, 16 inches. Remember, it's a -3 inches for that hill slope. They are only going to be able to move 13 inches, which is going to put them right here at the base of this slope. And let me put the leader there in the middle. They have 1 more inch left. So that's a total of 12 inches. They've got 13. They do not have the 3 extra inches to climb that hill. So a pretty good result for them. And in fact, we're going to pull them back just a little bit so that they are still out of range of the off-board artillery. We don't want them getting shot up until they reach these guys. And remember that the British are going to have, they're going to have initiative next turn. This has a range of 12 inches. So by staying far to the right, those guys are not at risk of this cannon, which means the French now can nominate this cannon to hold, and that might be a little bit of a problem. Let's bring this guy, and again, they've got a range of about 12 inches. Here's the key decision point. These guys can change formation and then head out. If they're in line formation, remember that they receive 1 less wound every time they're targeted by artillery. The difficulty is that will slow them down to a movement of 4 plus a d6. On the other hand, if they're in skirmish order, there's a 50-50 chance that they ignore this for movement purposes, and at 12 inches, you know, even with the extra, even if on average they're going to move 10 inches, that's going to put them almost there. They're going to be able to charge that cannon in the next turn. Kind of a tricky decision. This is why we play the games. Which risk are we going to take? And I think you have to risk charging through. They're light infantry. We're going to move at the double, and we're going to roll 4 so they can move a total of 10 inches. But we need to figure out whether or not they, on a 4 up, they ignore this cover. 6. All right, so they can move a total of 10 inches, which is really good for them. Now, when you are holding your action, these cannons can declare whether they fire now or after the move. They're going to fire after the move, of course. The 10 inches puts our leader here, and then, according to the rules as written, we're going to run up these guys so long as they are within about an inch of each other. Hey, by the way, I should have declared both of these guys, they have a total of 3 tack, and they have a unit leader with 1 strategy. They declared ranging fire. That's important. Ranging fire, and then on the hold, we'll start with these guys. Since this cannon is going to be firing canister, that's a whole separate way to work out the casualties. This one we're going to rotate so it faces these guys. Then what you do, the small cannon has a minimum range of 8 inches. That's what we're shooting for. Then what you do is you choose a number of dice up to the total accuracy value and add that roll to the cannon's range to establish where the shot hits. So the first shot lands at a range of 13 inches, which is going to put it way beyond our boys. But because of the ranging fire, we're able to subtract 6, meaning our first point actually is going to land at 7 inches. So we'll measure, and it lands just short. Then we roll 2d6 to see how far along the trajectory it goes. So it's going to go a total of 9 inches. This probably doesn't really matter. It's going to go basically off board. But you can see now where it might actually hit, if we had a second unit over here, we might have hit both of those units. The target point is going to take D6 damage. And anybody in this line is now going to take D3. So both of these guys now have to take 3 resilience checks. And they are riflemen with a resilience of 3. So the first guy is going to fail 1, and he goes down. The second one is going to fail 1, and so he also goes down. And just like that, their effectiveness is reduced by 20%. Then this guy is going to light him up, and he is firing with grape shot. So for that, you roll a d6, and on a 5, he does 5 wounds, so 5 more of these guys get blasted to smithereens. There's no saves on artillery. Because they have taken more than 25% of their casualties as in a single turn, I think that's one of the things that triggers a command check. They need a 4-up to stay in the fight. And hey, look at that, they got it. Some brave guys. All of their friends have been blown out of the water, and they're still raring and ready to go. The infantry over on the other side of the battlefield also have to. This is the French on the hill, and they passed their command check, so they are no longer broken. No, wait a second, I almost forgot. We do have one more guy who's going to move at the double. He is cavalry, and he's going to be able to move a total of 18 inches. Our major is going to ride over and join with this group to bolster their spirits, buck them up, and hopefully lead them on to victory. Now we move on to turn number 3. It is the British initiative, and the French cannot use their off-board artillery. There's nobody within the 12-inch. I reduced it to 10. I have a 30-inch board, so I just made it a third of the board. And then we're going to nominate. Now, here's the question. Do we want to nominate the infantry unit or the cavalry unit over here? Hey, our objective is to take the cannons. I think we have to charge these guys. And because our charge is, we're going to declare charge, but our leader can say, hey, do we have any special abilities we want to use with that? He now, oh, you know what? They actually, because he's within 1, they have a +1 to their command. Their command is now 4, so they're going to make any command saves on a 3-up. The question is whether we want to change formation. No, we don't want to change formation. He is part of the unit, so we just charge. Yeah, it's going to be D6 plus a D. It's going to be 6 inches plus a D6. So they're going to be able to move a total of 9 inches. Of course, it's 3 inches. So as long as they're to climb up the hill, so they are going to move into contact with this gun crew right here. There's a melee, and that's going to save them from that gun. Then the question is, what are the French going to do? And these guys are going to go ahead and pivot and take a shot at the cavalry over there. Here's why you need to declare ranging fire. This unit leader has to declare ranging fire against one or the other unit. He may not have been allowed, if we had done it properly and said ranging fire against the cavalry, he would have been stuck with the dice when it came to shooting up that infantry unit. All right, but they got away with one. That's okay. This time around, he's going to order ranging fire of, again, 8 inches against these cavalry boys. So we measure the... Oh, no, I'm sorry. He's going to order ranging fire against this unit, and then they're going to fire against that unit. So he says, I only want to roll 1d6 to see where my initial blast lands. So the initial one is going to stop at 9 inches. And then he can move that forward or backward 6 inches. And he's going to move it up to here so it lands right there. And then he'll roll his d6 So it moves a total of 9 inches. And in a straight line, it's going to catch 1, 2, 3 of these guys for the grazing fire. So the first guy that takes it on the chin, he just blasted him dead eye with a cannonball. He's going to suffer a total of D6 hits. So he's got to make 6 saves. Oh no. Well, okay. That's enough to kill him. That's all there is to it. So he takes 2 wounds. And then these 2 guys are going to take D3 each. The first guy takes a total of 2 wounds, and the second guy takes 1. And because he's a leader, we're actually going to remove him. And this leader now has 1 wound. Resilience don't matter. So that's where the grazing fire comes in. They have now lost 25% of their boys due to that 1 shot. They have to make a command check. Is that right? At the end of the... No, that's at the end of the firing phase, which we're still not done. Roll to damage, remove casualties, command check. Ah, okay. So we do have to do the command check. They pass the command check. They are now free to activate, and they're going to do just that. They're going to devastatingly charge these guys right here. So we'll move them into contact, and I think it's pretty clear they can reach it. After all, they are within the 10 inches. And so we're just going to put them kind of stuck in like so. And then he will ride. He's actually go. What is he going to do? Does he have any special abilities that might help? Enemy shooting. Nobody is shot at his guys, so his little Dazed Fox ability isn't going to do a whole lot of good here. And he is the last guy. The other cannon is engaged in melee. Let's bring him in to kind of balance things out there. He'll charge into melee. He's got a devastating charge. They've got a devastating charge. Oh my god, it's all devastating. So let's do this melee first. We have a confused, swirling melee here. One thing we do know, the cavalry get to strike first. Those are hussars. It's going to be a total of 3 attacks. Normally they'd get an additional D3 if there were 5 of them. Since there's only 3, they don't get the devastating charge. They are going to be hitting on 3 up. They're going to get 3 hits. They are wielding sabers, so they will wound. Normally it would be on a 3 up. Wait, resilience is... You have to equal or beat a 3 for the infantry resilience. But because they have a saber, 2 ups do the wound. So they are able to take out 2 of the infantrymen, which is good because it means there's only going to be 2, 4, 6, 7 of them left. Then they do have a sergeant. He's also got a melee of 3. So the white dice are going to be for the... Everybody's got a melee of 3. So all of these are going to be hitting on 4 up. They get a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. And the yellow die is for the mounted guy. He missed. So we got to keep track of that because he's the only one fighting with a saber. The rest of these guys are swinging with a bayonet. And they have to beat a resilience of 3 up. So we got 4 rolls at a 3 up, and they've managed to beat 2 of them. So they do 2 wounds, and we're going to give 1 wound to each of these guys for a total of 2 wounds to the French, to 2 wounds to the British. However, the British charged for +2, but the French are on higher ground for +1, and there is a force commander for +1 to the French. And which side outnumbers the enemy by 2 to 1? They outnumber the British by more than 2 to 1, so the British have lost this melee round. And they have to make a command check. We probably should have brought... A 6 is going to keep them in the fight. Probably should have brought that commander over here. If we brought the commander, the mounted guy, to fight this, then they would have won. And that would have forced a check on the French. This 1 infantry unit is doing a great job securing the flanks for the 2 cannons over here. And we do have one more melee to fight over here now. And these guys are going to have a total of 1, 2, 3 attacks. They did charge. And then that boss man there. Now I want to say the major there is a melee specialist. He gets 2 attacks. So the 2 yellow dice here are for the mounted guy. We've got melees of 3 fighting melees of 3, so it's going to be hitting on 4 up. The major gets 2 hits, and we get 1 more hit. So the major is going to do damage on 2 up, and this is going to be on a 3 up for how many wounds we do. So we're going to do a total of 2 wounds to this gun crew. These 2 guys go down, then this gun crew is going to fight back. They're only going to get 2 attacks, and they're going to be hitting on 4 up. They get 2 hits, and they are going to do damage on a 3 up, so nobody gets hurt. So that is clearly a victory for the British on this side. These guys are now going to have to pass a command check, and with a 5, they do, so they're still in it. Oh, you know, maybe they're not. Maybe they're not. We got to think about this, because that 5 is modified considerably. It's modified by 2 for the wounds. Then, because there's a force commander, it's modified again, and they're not outnumbered, so they got that going for them. So the total score here is a 5 to the British to 1 for the French. So subtract 4 from that roll, and these guys immediately flee 2d6 inches. So they run off the table. And then it is, well, they managed to secure one of the guns. So that goes bye-bye. Turn number 4 begins, and the French have the initiative. They're going to go ahead and spin this cannon around. They're going to take a ranging shot. And oh, by the way, they also have that canister shot from off-board that they can use to resolve against these guys. So let's do the canister shot first. It's a little bit easier. Roll a d6. Oh, it's a misfire, so it's no effect. That Cauldron of War did them no good. But this guy now can use ranging fire. He's going to roll 1d6. He's going to fire 7 inches away, and he's going to... Oh, well, that misses. That's going to land right here. So here's where it gets a little bit complicated. Does he want to bring that back to 1 inch away? If he rolls a 6, he hits this guy. Otherwise, he's going to hit 2 of these guys. Should we just take the 2? Yeah, let's just take the 2. So we roll 2d6. It's going to be 8 inches. So everybody within an 8-inch line. And it's going to be the last 2 boys in this unit are... It does D3 wounds to... I think it does D3 wounds to the unit. That's 2 wounds. It's going to remove everybody but the boss man. He's going to have to make a command check. And with a 5, he does. Then it's going to be the British turn, and all that we have left to do is to charge over here. Moving at the speed of the slowest guy, that is the... 8 inches is going to be... Here. Let's give it to him. Good times. Now, they are still uphill. But because he was able to run and avoid this cliff edge, that means that they are able to get stuck in. And we're going to do a little bit more melee. Whoever has the initiative, that's the French. They want to do this melee first. Nobody charged. So cavalry go first. Whoever has the highest melee goes first. That's going to be our British hussars. Again, they're going to be hitting on 3s. They're going to get 2 hits altogether, and they're going to be wounding on 2 up. Wow, you guys are amazing. The dice are just not smiling upon the redcoats today, and that's going to be a big problem because we've got 2, 4, 6, 8 guys on the ground and 1 guy on a horse. They're all going to be hitting on 3s. That'll be a total of 5 hits. That will wound on a 3 up. 3 up. Yeah, resiliency of a 3. So here's our roll. It's going to be 2 more wounds, and these 2 guys have gone down, leaving just their unit commander on the field. At least we remember to use the 2 wounds. And then I think that's it. Since they did a total of 2 wounds, this guy has to roll to see if he stays in the fight, and he is now not only wounded, but he is also broken. He immediately flees a total of... They are not going to pursue. He flees a total of 15 inches, which will take him to the top of the hill due south. He is broken, so he can't do anything else this turn. Now, let's take a look at this fight for the cannon over here. The guy on the horse is going to attack first. He is going to have 2 attacks, and this guy is also going to have 2 attacks. They are going to be hitting on the yellow dice hit on 3s, the white one on a 4. Going to be a total of 2 hits. This wound's on a 2 up, this wound's on a 3 up. 2 damage. So these 2 cannoneers now have a chance to hit back. They're both going to miss, and now in order to stick around, they're going to have to pass a command check at a -2. So they need a 6 to stick around, and they flee off the board. So the cannons have been secured by the British, but at what a terrible cost. The hussars were able to keep the infantry over here pinned down long enough for the line to do what they could. And once they got stuck into melee, it really negated the heavy firepower of the cannons. I think this battle could have gone either way. I think it's a fairly balanced fight, given the terrain and the forces involved. And we had to make some tricky decisions, had to take some risks. And of course, the dice had their say, just as it should be in this or any other war game. I mean, any war game that uses dice. I guess if it's card-driven only, then the dice aren't going to have a say. You know what I mean. Until next time, I'm praying for you.